Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I hope you're doing well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Before we get started, why don't you give me a little bit of background on your career and how you got into mainframe? Because I think that's an interesting story.
Yes, I would like to share that. Thanks again, Amanda, for having me today. It's To be honest, my mainframe career almost happened as an accident. But that I mean to say that I didn't plan for it; it just happened. And I would like to share a little background on that story. Is that after doing my bachelor's degree in computer science in India back in 2002, I guess, when I finished, I was looking to get into a master program in from one of the best universities in US. So I started preparing for the necessary tests that I need to do, such as the GRE, they call like graduate record examination. That's
Mm-hmm.
the test you have to take it for any university you need to get admitted into in US. And then there is other called TOEFL exam. So those are the two things I was preparing, and I got through those tests, and then I applied for a couple of universities, and then I probably got almost most of the universities admissions, which they call I-20s. So I out of all those, I choose the Southern Illinois University, which short form for SIU. It was in Carbondale, in Illinois. Um, I got there, I guess, fall 2003 semester. Um, and then during that first my semester, I was just catching up with my friends who are already been here in US to get to feel of what's the lifestyle is and what's how things are here in US versus because we came from a British English, and I'm pretty sure there's some differences in British and US English. I was just trying to find out some of the terms we use here and there. So, for example, one of the conversations we had with friends told me that we call brinjal versus the eggplant, or the we call ladyfinger versus the okra. Some of the and then the other thing, so pretty other interesting, is that we call soft drinks, and here we call soda to be popular. And the most confusing to me back then was that American football. I thought it's soccer, but where it's a different game, but they call it football. So and on the same terms, one of the other term I was get confused is the word a term called cricket. In India, that's the most common word we use, just simply because it's very popular sports in India. Almost most of them will know about this game. So when I came here, the cricket word is most commonly used here is for an insect. So those are the few things I got to help me to getting into the my new life here in the US. So those are the conversations I had along with my friends who already been here. We're calling them, and one day I was making a call to my friend, and we were having a casual conversation, and he happened to be graduated from Northern. I was in Southern, and he was graduate from Northern Illinois, and he said, "Why don't you move to Northern and do your master degree there?" I was like, "What's so special about Northern?" And he started saying about the mainframe curriculum. I was like, "What's so great about mainframe?" Then he went on to explain what's the history and what's the greatness of mainframe. So that got some interest in me. So I thought, so this is how I all started off at Northern University. And then after graduating from Northern, I needed to go to the actual real world, how it works out. So again, I got help from one of the NIU alumni who was working back then in Silicon Valley, and he know me and how I studied and everything. So he immediately called me when there is an offer at BMC Software. So I went there, went some couple of rounds of interviews left and right. People played with that because I'm pretty new. And I liked what they're doing back then. And then I joined in 2005 with BMC in Silicon Valley. Of course, that also helped me to get out of that winter weather to the sunny state in California. And since then, I'm working here in Silicon Valley with BMC Software. It's been like almost 12 plus years working with them. That's a little bit background on my career in mainframes. You know, Amanda, the mainframes is one of the oldest platform, and it dates back to 1950 when they started. And back then, they're pretty large. Like they used to occupy an entire room. And they're not just that. I mean, they're the only computers back then, and very few companies could afford them. But I think in 1960s, they all got changed dramatically when mainframes started standardizing both hardware and software. So when there's a standardization, what happens is that people started taking advantage of it. They're writing software using several different languages. Back then, we don't have any Java or anything. So they're mostly assembler and COBOL and other languages. So they wrote their applications because of the standardization. And you might be surprised that even today, they run just fine. Even today on the newest mainframe, they just run fine, even the oldest programs. So that's how the evolution of the mainframe happened, is that they kept the backward compatibility as a main key feature. But after 1960s, the mainframes got evolved, and then the same machine that used to occupy the entire big room, now it's got to the size of your refrigerator. But it doesn't mean that its processing capacity is shrink. It actually expanded. So it does more work than it used to, and got it shorter and smaller, and also more affordable. So some of these things made ideal for the lot of organizations. So, for example, as of today, more than 70% of the top 500 global companies rely on mainframes to run their mission-critical business. And the reason they run mainframes is that because of their high usability. In other words, what they see is, for example, the banks, insurance, the healthcare, the several different private and public sectors, airlines. What they need is in a system is that the ability to process the high volume of transactions, because that's how they deal the business, and then ability to run both the application and user at the same time. So they need to support thousands of those things, and at the same time they need to access the big amount of data from the databases. So this needs to be, and it needs to be, they need a sophisticated system to handle this tremendous, complicated business structure, and that's where the mainframe needs them, and that's why they continue to rely on the mainframes even today. So I think that's the so special about the mainframe is that, in fact, I was at CMG conference last month at New Orleans. So we were jokingly saying that the amount of critical data that mainframe runs on is if we do something wrong, or if something goes bad with the mainframe, then we bring the economy down. We can bring economy down with it. So that's how critical that mainframes are in our today's life.
So from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the mainframe industry today?
Yes, I think despite what I just talked about, some of the great features about the mainframe, if you look at the latest surveys that we get every year, that we do as an industry faces few challenges, and that some of these things, it strikes me, is the high cost of ownership of a machine, the mainframe, and the other is the shortage of the mainframe skills, personals, and the other is the modernization of the mainframes. So these are the few critical challenges we face today, and I would like to elaborate these things. Regarding the cost of ownership, the organization which are using mainframe, either they have a flat on their budget, or that continues to look into reducing the cost, because the mainframe itself has several costing. For example, you have the hardware cost, software cost, people's cost, But out of them, I think is the biggest chunk is the software cost that runs on the mainframe. And as this industry, as a IT industry, we all a lot of data we need to run. So, including, for example, the mobile and everything. So all this data still needs to go through the mainframe behind the back. So as the data goes through the mainframe, that the software cost that the companies incur is going to be high, but the companies are not willing to. So there is certain. So that's one of the things that we need to address as a mainframe industry. And the other is the shortage of mainframe skills, and it's been well written all over the internet and in the surveys that some of the people best in the great minds that started with their career with the mainframe incarnation back in 50s, 60s, and 70s, they're now retiring, and some of them already are, and some are going to. The problem is that there are not enough people stepping in, like millennials, that needs to be filled in to take this mainframe further, and this creates a critical imbalance in the mainframe ecosystem, because at one side you have a great platform that is solid, and then it has been trusted and runs the world's most critical economy, and then the other hand you have not enough people who could take on further to maintain it. So that's some of the thing I think as an industry we need to address. I think one of the reason I believe is that the younger generation, including millennials like me, is that we look to the other side of the mainframe. So we look at the latest and greatest happening at that moment, as opposed to what's going on in the history, like the development of the app world and the chasing after the next unicorn, such as the Airbnb and Uber. I'm not saying those are bad, but I'm just saying those could be one of the contributing factors where people are ignoring to get into the mainframe. So some of these things we need to consider to address these issues. And the third most important thing as an industry we face today is the modernization of the mainframes. So it is kind of extension of what we talked is lack of shortage of the mainframe skills, is that we as an industry, we also need to evolve to match the current trends in the computing world, so that we need to modernize, attract, and retain the latest and greatest people in the talent, younger generation, so that it's more appealing to them as we go modernize the mainframe. So these are three things I think as an industry we face critical challenges today.
One of the things that I thought was great about the Impact Conference in particular was that we had a lot of presenters who were talking about things they had done in the past, things they were working on currently. But one of the thing that gets me really excited is when I hear what they see the future of the industry looking like, and the things that they're excited to work on in the future. What are some of the things that you're excited about when you look forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. The conference whole everything was the talking about what happened so far and also what's going to happen. So those are some of the things you look forward as a industry seeker to check whereabouts on what the industry is going to be next step. So that's why these are conferences very, very important to be a part of it, of the technology. So I put a lot of emphasis on that. So I think we had several discussion back then in conferences and everything, and also there are a lot of surveys on the mainframe side area talking about what's going to be future look like for the mainframe. So one of the things in our world, of course, not in the latest, not the other technologies, is that you always hear the term called mainframe is going to dead. And there are several articles that are written all over the world, and not just now. It's been written like decades ago that mainframes are going to be dead and everything. It's not going anywhere. It's not, because the things I see at the mainframe side evolving going forward is that supports my claim that the mainframe is not going anywhere. It's still there because 70% of the top 500 companies still run the mainframe. They use the critical business to run on the mainframe. The reason is that, for example, even in the 1960s? Yeah, I think it's maybe 1990s, when this new technology called client-server technology came in, where you have this different nodes connected together as computers. They run the processing, the application. So like back then, a lot of pundits predicted that mainframe is going to die because of this latest clients server technology. But what they did, mainframe, they took up the challenge, and then they came up with a brilliant machine that matches the current trend. So that's how the mainframe always been. And then if you look at some of the things happening, is that the mainframe itself has a lot of data running through every day. They process like thousands of transactions a second. So that's how the amount of data that flows through. Now the latest trend is that now they want to use this data for analytics. So they want to take out this data, all this running information, run through these analytical tools and everything, and see what's going on and connect the dots. So this is the latest trend going on, because if this will be added benefit to the customers, because they have all the data they need. So they need a newer way of looking the data and predict some of these things, and be for your capacity purpose or be for your cost, just about anything they need to, or to debug your problems and anything. So the analytics is going to be the next big thing in this mainframe world. And the automation, because of the or you can call as a modernization of the mainframe. I also see a lot of things happening in this area. A lot of companies are investing in modernizing and automating the mainframe.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Hemanth. I really do appreciate you giving us a few minutes to tell us about why you think mainframe is special and where you see the industry going.
Thank you, Amanda. It's my pleasure, and it is always. I'm really interested in talking about mainframe. I'm really enthusiastic to talk about mainframe. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for having me today.
You too, and I hope we see you at a CMG event soon.
Sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.